Welcome back, law-abiding citizens and curious troublemakers alike, to the tentacles of Cuyahoga County. I'm your host, the infamous ex-chief, here to untangle the web of justice and injustice. You're turning it into episode 29, week 29, when we're continuing our mission of exposing the good, the bad, and the downright ridiculous in law enforcement. As the self-appointed ambassador of good policing and chief saboteur of bad cops, I'm here to keep you informed and entertained. Now, for all you tech-savvy sleuths out there, we've got some exciting news. I sort of talked about it last episode. The tentacles have spread their reach across the digital realm. We can now catch us on Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Buzzsprout. There's actually a bunch more, but you get the idea. We're like the Kraken of content, reaching into every corner of the internet. Speaking of reaching out, you can drop us a line at the tentacles of Cuyahoga County at gmail.com. I will drop it here. We promise we won't run a background check on you. Probably. For those of you who have been squinting at your screens trying to scan our QR codes, we heard your cries of frustration. A viewer pointed out that it's not exactly easy to scan a QR code on your phone while watching it on your phone. Who knew, right? It's almost as if you were testing your detective skills, but fear not. We've outsmarted ourselves and included links below for Signal and Rumble, Buy Me a Coffee, as well as the actual email address. Now you can access our content faster than a cop gets to a donut shop. All right, folks, let's add a little fuel to this law enforcement expose machine. If you're enjoying our deep dives into the murky waters, the police finest and not so finest, consider buying your favorite ex-chief a cup of coffee. After all, keeping these tentacles caffeinated is crucial for our investigative prowess. Remember, your coffee contribution isn't just a drink, it's liquid motivation for justice. The pride of the fancy latte. You can help keep me more wired than a rookie on their first night shift. Who knows? With enough caffeine, we might even solve some cold cases, or at least stay awake long enough to fill some paperwork out. So if you want to support the cause and keep this ex-chief's synopsis firing faster than a police radio during a high-speed chase, check out the Buy Me a Cup of Coffee link below. Your generosity ensures that the tentacles of Cuyahoga County stays perked up and ready to unravel the next big story. After all, justice never sleeps, but it does occasionally need a strong espresso. So sit back, relax, and prepare to dive into the murky waters of law enforcement's finest, and not so finest, with the tentacles of Cuyahoga County. Remember, in this show, the long arm of the law has nothing on our tentacles. Our first topic of the week is an officer-involved shooting from Madina County Sheriff's Department. And this is actually, I think, their second officer-involved shooting. The previous one actually was by the sheriff himself, Terry Grice, who is an ex-alum of the Put-in-Bay Police Department. So the incident, a night of tension and tragedy on the evening of October 5th, 2024, what began as a homecoming celebration at Wadsworth High School quickly turned into a tense situation involving law enforcement across multiple counties in Ohio. So the incident was actually set in motion when the Wayne County Sheriff's Office received reports of an individual making suicidal statements. The subject, later identified as 44-year-old David Septer, was reportedly armed and had made concerning remarks about being, quote, ready for them, end quote, in reference to law enforcement. As information suggested Septer might be heading towards Wadsworth, local authorities took swift action, and at approximately 9:11 p.m., deputies from the Madina County Sheriff's Office joined forces with the Wadsworth Police Department to secure Wadsworth High School. As a precautionary measure, the school's homecoming event was placed on lockdown. It was actually a soft lockdown. Despite initial concerns, further investigation revealed that there was never a direct threat to Wadsworth High School or its students. However, the situation remained critical as law enforcement worked to locate Septer. At around 10:08 p.m., officers spotted Septer's vehicle on Silver Creek Road in the city of Wadsworth. A traffic stop was initiated in Wadsworth Township near Madison Trail. The situation escalated rapidly when Septer exited his vehicle and pointed a loaded rifle at the deputies. In response to the immediate threat, 2 deputies, both 3-year veterans of the force, discharged their service weapons, and despite immediate life-saving efforts by law enforcement and EMS, David Michael Septer was pronounced dead at the scene. Coming up, we'll be providing a brief analysis of body-worn camera footage from the incident. The footage offers a pretty crucial perspective on rapidly unfolding events, providing viewers with a first-hand look at the challenging decision law enforcement officers faced in a high-pressure situation. The footage will be presented with appropriate context and sensitivity, given the tragic outcome of this encounter. This incident serves as a stark reminder of the complex and often unpredictable nature of law enforcement work, especially when dealing with individuals in crisis. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification from the Ohio Attorney General's office has taken charge of investigating this officer-involved shooting, so I'm sure that we will likely to be at the forefront of discussion in coming days of use of force protocols. Why couldn't you shoot him in the leg? Why couldn't you shoot him in the arm? I'm going to show the video, folks. I think this is pretty much a clear, wrapped-up case. I don't even know that BCI needs to spend much time on your hard-earned tax dollars wasting this investigation. We'll go into that in 1 second here. So normally I might, in an objective state, normally I might be a little aggravated because they have definitely fine-tuned this body camera. They've limited it only to the section of the actual event itself. They've even slowed it down. That's not me. The way you're going to view this body camera is exactly how it was given to us here at the Tentacles. Normally, objectively, I don't appreciate that, and it's actually probably against my public records request. However, having said that, having just watched the slight little excerpt of what they've shown, I don't think it really leaves us with any other way to think than this is a justified shooting. But let's look at it. We're going to look at the dash cam first. Apparently there's dash cam and body cam. We're going to look at the dash cam first.
Creek and Messenger. High risk stop, high risk stop.
I think this is dash cam. You're going to see body cam, I think, from the officer that's actually there on the right. This is the dash cam, obviously, of this officer here. I don't know. We're going to have to look at the body camera. I can't honestly recall. It looks like from the angle of the body camera, I was assuming it was the guy on the right, the officer on the right. But let's watch.
Continuing southbound, Silver Creek. That's clear.
So obviously this is going to be treated as a high risk, or commonly known as a felony traffic stop.
Hands on the car! Hands up!
And there it is. Guy exiting the vehicle with a rifle pointed at officers. Again, doesn't take a genius. Let's not waste a lot of time on this investigation here, folks. No offense to the family, I apologize, but this is pretty clear cut. But let's watch the body camera.
Alright, 4009 traffic stop, Silver Creek and Madison Trail. High risk stop, high risk stop. Continuing southbound, Silver Creek. I think we're stopping.
So that is, that's the deputy. I thought I was correct. That's the deputy's body camera that was on the right of the traffic stop. So we have the dash camera of the officer, the deputy on the left, and this is the body camera of the officer directly behind the suspect.
Put your hands out of the car! Show me your hands! Do it now! Hands up! Hands up! hands up!
All right, there you have it, folks. Again, not a lot of video, but I can't fault. I mean, objectively, they should have turned over the entire video, but I can't fault them for this shooting. I think it's going to be obviously totally justified. I'm 0 for like 12 on this analysis. All right, as of recently, officer-involved shootings that have been taking place. They're all over the place also, which is something interesting to look into because, again, I think this is the second officer-involved shooting this year in Madina County, and Madina County is not typically a high crime-rated county. So for all of these incidents to be taking place in Medina County, something to take a gander at and perhaps take reflection on. So we are continuing on with the Madina County officer-involved shooting. This is a statement report from the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. I was sort of curious to how they became involved, but this sort of explains and brings us up to speed. So the Wayne County Sheriff's Office incident type suicide threat, date and time October 5th, 2024. And this is at 8:04 p.m. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office responded to a call regarding suicidal threats. The caller, identified as the subject's wife, reported that her husband had expressed intentions to end his life. She also warned that he was willing to harm officers if they responded to the scene. Officers were dispatched to the reported location at 8:11 p.m. They arrived on scene at 8:36. Upon arrival, officers located the subject, David Michael Septer, north of the Wayne County line. The caller informed officers that the subject might be heading towards Wadsworth, where his daughter attends school. The information was promptly forwarded to the Wadsworth Police Department, who then deployed officers to search for the subject. They then maintained perimeter around the incident for traffic control, but reportedly had no other action. So this is extremely just sad for everybody all around. Just through some extra due diligence that I performed, it seems like Mr. Septer was a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. I'm not certain. Obviously, I'm not certain what the issue was relative to this incident, but it's sad all the way around. It's sad now because you have a family without Mr. Septer. You have two police officers now that will have this haunt them the rest of their life, even though I firmly believe that their actions to be justifiable. You know, the police world that are watching this are, hey, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Okay. Again, it was justified. However, those officers are going to have to carry this around. And there had to be a better way. I wish Mr. Septer would have chosen a better circumstance for this, because not only has this greatly affected, again, his family for the rest of their lives, now it affects these two officers for the rest of their lives for actions that they had to take. I did ask for the city of Wadsworth radio traffic. They gave me a short, I think it was like a one-sentence report or CAD entry relative to the incident. For some reason, they seem to be hesitant on releasing the radio traffic. I have no idea why. Radio traffic 911 calls, body cameras, again, generally are not exempt entirely. You can redact things out of them as far as identities of suspects that have not been charged, medical records. But I think those are actually the only two things. There may be some additional little things, but generally you can't just keep the entire record. So through emails, they advised that they were going to be redacting portions of the radio traffic. Again, I think we have everything already released, so I'm not certain what they could possibly be redacting, but we're still waiting on that. I'll let you know if we ever get it. We have some East Cleveland officer indictment updates. I believe if you've been following, Officer McGinnis and Officer Anthony Holmes are actually in trial. They are in their second day of trial as of this recording. They're in the process of voir dire, which is a fancy French name for the selection of the jury. But the first day of trial, there are some interesting things that occurred here. So let's talk about that. The defense for Ian McGinnis filed 3 motions. The first motion is titled Notice of Conflict. And this is the classic legal dance of hide the witness identity backfires spectacularly. Let's dissect this sassy notice. Our intrepid defense attorney, Gabrielle Plabus, is throwing some serious shade at the prosecution's witness list shenanigans. Apparently, they thought it would be fun to play Guess Who with their witnesses, listing one simply as representative of Cleveland Police Department. Spoiler alert, it's Gabrielle's ex-client. Poor Gabrielle finds herself in a proper pickle, caught between a rock and an ethical hard place. Number one, she can't cross-examine her former client without breaking the sacred attorney-client privilege. And two, she can't defend her current client properly without grilling said witness. It's like being asked to juggle flaming torches while walking a tightrope, blindfolded, in a hurricane. Gabrielle's notice is essentially a masterclass in professional eye-rolling. She's telling the court, hey, I would have loved to give you a heads up earlier, but the prosecution decided to play coy with their witness list. Not cool. Not cool at all. With this notice, Gabrielle's basically saying, hey, Your Honor, I'm going to need a rain check on this whole cross-examination thing. My hands are tied by ethics. Can we get a do-over, pretty please? In conclusion, it's a classic case of Mo vague witness list, Mo problems. Let's hope the judge has a sense of humor and a solution up her robe sleeve. The second motion that was filed, motion in limine to exclude improper lay opinion testimony from Robert D. Simone. And motion in limine is just a fancy term for to have a conversation or essentially a mini hearing excluding the jury so that the jury doesn't hear. Based on the motion in limine filed by the defense, here is a critical summary of the prosecution's approach and their use of Robert D. Simone as a witness. And we've talked about Robert before. The prosecution's reliance on Robert D. Simone's testimony and investigative reports appears to be deeply problematic and potentially unconstitutional. Several key issues stand out. D. Simone is not qualified as an expert witness. Yes, the prosecution seems to intend to having him provide opinion testimony on complex matters, such as accident reconstruction, evaluation of police use of force, determination of reasonableness in law enforcement actions. These topics require specialized knowledge and training that D. Simone certainly does not possess. Violation of evidence rules. The defense correctly points out that D. Simone's proposed testimony likely violates Ohio rules of evidence, particularly Rule 701, lay witness testimony, Rule 702 on expert testimony. D. Simone's opinions are not based on firsthand sensory knowledge as required for lay witnesses. That's how a lay witness testifies in court. Instead, he's drawing conclusion from video evidence and investigations after the fact. A lay witness can testify about what he or she sees when an incident occurs. Only an expert can testify about conclusions after the fact. Just summing that up for you guys. D. Simone appears to be offering legal conclusions about the reasonableness of the defendant's actions. This is not only outside his expertise, but also usurps the role of the jury in determining key facts of the case. The motion notes that D. Simone's interpretations, particularly regarding the accident involving Bernard Bennett, are entirely inconsistent with every other expert opinion in this case. We're talking about state's witnesses, folks, which we've talked about before. His opinion doesn't even match their own state witnesses. Anyways, those include experts D. Simone himself has consulted. The prosecution's attempt to use D. Simone in this matter suggests, 1, a weak foundation for their case if they're relying on improper testimony, 2, potential ethical concerns in trying to present non-expert opinions as authoritative, 3, risk of having key evidence excluded, potentially undermining their entire case. The defense's motion highlights significant flaws in the prosecution's approach, potentially exposing them to criticism for attempting to circumvent proper evidentiary standards and due process protections. The third motion, is a motion in limine to preclude use of prior accidental shooting. The defense is seeking to exclude any reference to the defendant's prior misdemeanor case from 2016. The motion argues that introducing this evidence would be improper and prejudicial for several reasons. Point. The 2016 incident involved an accidental discharge of a firearm while off duty. Second point, the current charges do not involve firearms or similar circumstances. Third point, the prior incident occurred in a different jurisdiction and role. Volunteer officer versus active officer. Fourth point, introduction of this evidence could unfairly bias the jury. The fifth point, it may lead jurors to make improper character assumptions from the defendant. The sixth point, the prejudicial effect substantially outweighs any potential probative value. Seventh point, Ohio Rules of Evidence 401, 402, 403A, and 404B are cited to support exclusion. The prior incident does not meet the criteria for admissible other facts evidence. It cannot be used to prove motive, intent, preparation, plan, knowledge, or absence of a mistake. Admitting this evidence could violate the defendant's right to fair trial. It potentially infringes on due process protections. The prosecution has ample other evidence and witnesses making this prior incident unnecessary and potentially duplicative. Any attempt to use this evidence would likely be for improper character assassination rather than legitimate evidentiary purposes. The significant differences between the 2016 incident and the current charges make any comparisons or inferences logically flawed. Introducing this evidence could be seen as an attempt to inflame the jury's emotions rather than present relevant facts. The prosecution's reliance on such tenuous connections may indicate weakness in their core case against the defendant. Attempting to admit this evidence could be viewed as an overreach by the prosecution, potentially damaging their credibility with the court. So that's a wrap up of the summary of motions that I had jotted down. Again, there were 3 motions that were filed on Monday. From what I understand, the judge is supposed to be ruling on those motions today after the jury is selected. We'll keep up to date with that. So today it was another day of motions being filed in the Ian McGinnis trial, and I'm hesitant. I didn't want to monopolize the entire show relative to this, but this trial is obviously this week. So there's a lot of things going back and forth, and I honestly can't see where the judge can honestly not listen to this. The judge up to this point has been very friendly to the state, essentially ruling or not ruling in favor or defense on a lot of motions that made a lot of sense. But I don't know how she can ignore this. So officers, when they use force, there's a lot of case law relative to it, okay? Officers have to use force in the course of their duty. And so the Supreme Court has ruled that essentially hindsight is 20/20. That's the analysis saying for it. Hindsight is 20/20. That an officer must be judged by what another reasonable officer would do in a similar circumstance. And so that's what this new motion, which, again, I don't know how the judge can ignore this. So, again, this document is a motion in limine filed on October 8th, 2024. And it's basically the defendant, Ian McGinnis, through his attorney, Gabriel Plopoulos, is requesting the court to prohibit 20/20 hindsight opinion testimony from all witnesses. It's also prevent any suggestions in the state's opening or closing argument that the defendant could have or should have taken alternative action. And the legal basis is the motion cites several key legal precedents. Graham versus Connor, all right, established that the reasonableness of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene, not with hindsight. State versus White, Ohio Supreme Court, followed the Graham versus Connor standard. And then even in the 8th District Court, which is local, State versus Williams, also applied the Graham standard, emphasizing objective reasonableness based on the known facts at the time. Right? So the U.S. Supreme Court already prohibits 20/20 hindsight testimony in such cases. Allowing such testimony or suggestions would be reversible error. The focus should be on what a reasonable officer could have believed in the moment, not what they should have done in retrospect. The motion argues that any testimony or argument speculating about alternative actions the defendant could or should have taken is precisely what the U.S. Supreme Court prohibits. All right, so folks, I'm going to finish our final segment here at not the compound this time, but different location. And trial still going forward, first full day of trial. We actually have commander, I believe he's a commander, the patrol division testifying as of to policies right now. And as far as we are aware, the judge has not ruled in any of those motions. Makes it classic Cuyahoga County having a trial, and nobody really knows even what the ground rules are at this point. So we're going to cut this episode short. We're going to actually probably going to continue this recording this week. There's actually probably going to be another really quick recording coming up at the conclusion, hopefully, of the trial. I'm assuming it's, I don't know how long it's honestly going to go. I don't know if it's going to go until next week or not. But if it doesn't go until next week, we'll be back later this week for a second short video. Anyways, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you guys either later this week or next week.